we can get focused on our husbands and what he's doing and what he's not doing and what the next husband's doing and what the next husband's not doing. But really, this is God's leadership. Ephesians 5:22-23 says, "Wives, submit yourself to your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior." What I want to focus on is when it says, "Wives, submit yourself to your own husbands." And I find that so interesting. It is so loaded because my husband is not like your husband. Your husband is not like my husband. And that's why we cannot compare. I mean, our husband is who he is. And God has not made carbon copies of each other. He wants us all to be different. And, as we submit to our individual leaders, our lives will look different. I find that this is especially true in the counseling world, because we can hear things like men should do this and men should do that. And yes, men are commanded by God to love their wives as Christ loved the church. It's a huge calling. They're called to not be harsh with their wives. But we can't put all the men in one box, because all of our men are different. And so what works for your marriage will not work for my marriage. Yes, there's godliness, and that should be the standard. But we cannot compare husbands one to another, because they're all different. Who am I to say that it is right or it is wrong, right? We may have our preferences, and that is where I think the problem lies, where the fighting can happen, because we have our preferences. We can look around and say, well, why aren't you leading me like he's leading her, or I would prefer if you did this. And our husbands, they don't like that. They don't like being compared to the next guy. They don't like it, because they feel like they're not good enough on their own. They are who they are. Would we wives like it if our husbands compared us to the next woman out there? Okay, that is bringing this in a whole new light, because absolutely not. I do not want to be compared to the next woman. And likewise, our husbands don't want to be compared either. Now, this is really, we can get focused on our husbands and what he's doing and what he's not doing and what the next husband's doing and what the next husband's not doing. But really, this is God's leadership that we have a problem with, because if God is leading our husband in a certain direction that we perhaps don't like the direction. I'm not saying it's sin. Now, I'm so leery of saying that, because sin, it's got to be sin. We can move the line all over the place, and sin can be pretty much whatever we want. It's not good that we do that, but that is true that we do that, But God's leadership, the direction of our family, and where our husband's going. And it's like, you chose him. I chose him. This is our guy. We didn't know what we were signing up for, but you know what? This is an adventure. It's an adventure when we don't know necessarily where we're going or what's going to happen, but we know that God is in control. Right? Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch of your souls, and they will answer to God. They will give an account for you to God. That's Hebrews 13:17. And so, and we can look all throughout Bible history where God used even what appeared to be a bad leader to usher in his goodness and his will for his people. Pharaoh is a perfect example. I mean, that is not, we would not look at Pharaoh in the book of Exodus. We would not look at that as a good leader. But God used that to usher in, everyone was going to look on and see the wonders of God. And, God hardened his heart. How about that? I mean, God can very much be involved even with what looks like a harsh leader, or what Pharaoh was doing, was not right. But we can look at our husbands and say, oh, well, I just don't like this because, it's our preference, and I don't like that, and I don't want you to do that. And so we can call it sin, but not necessarily. The 10 Commandments is a perfect guide to go by. Okay, is your husband asking you to murder, to steal, to commit adultery? Go through the line. And the thing is, too, is we have our forms of godliness, in our own personal life. And so that may not even be unto God's righteousness, unto God's holiness. And we're putting that onto our husband and saying, well, you got to be the form of godliness that I say. And it's like, no, it's got to be God's way. But you know what? You're not responsible for his spiritual journey. You're responsible for yourself. You will answer to God for your own behavior, wife. God judged Adam and Eve separately. He did not judge them as a unit. Adam would toil, and Eve was going to have increased pain during childbearing, and also her husband was going to rule over her, and her desire was going to be for him. And that was, God, you will stand before God as an individual. You will not stand as a married couple. How will God see you? Did you obey the government that he put over you? Now, I'm talking about us submitting to our own husbands. All of our husbands are different. There is not a one size fits all, and what especially rubs me the wrong way in Christian marriage counseling, the lingo, not that I've done Christian marriage counseling, but I've heard a lot of lingo just about, and I'm all for it if it's unto, true change and unto godliness. And I'm not knocking Christian marriage counseling. There's some things that I don't agree with, with it. But one thing is that, like, men can be compared and men can be ganged up on. Well, you are not doing what you should, husband, so therefore we're gonna, take her side and we're gonna gang up on you. But you know what does the Bible say? Wives, submit yourself to your own husbands. So God is leading each wife in accordance to her husband's personality, in accordance to his interest. Yes, unto godliness, not unto sin. But this is my personal opinion about sin, is God will never call you to sin. And so if you're put in that situation, he will make a way, or you, yes, do need to get out. But he will make a way for you. I've had those situations too where it's like, I don't know about this. There's been a couple different times where I'm like, honey, no, and I wasn't exactly sure, but I prayed about it and I brought it to God. And you know what? God made a way where I thought that there was no way. God can do that. Now, the thing is, wives, submit yourself to your own husbands. Sometimes we don't really like our husband's, personality. Maybe we did when we started dating, but then the more we got, the more married we were, and the more things came down the pike, maybe we realized, I'm not too fond of this. But you know what? This is your husband. This is who you chose.